So please, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to introduce Andre Bergs, who's here with us from Plastiek. And Plastiek is a company that is a true transmedia company in the sense that they come from an animation background. They're international. They have studios in Thailand and also in the Netherlands. They are often looking for co-productions where they can work with other companies that are in animation feature, animation series, books, games, video games. So I encourage you all to, after this presentation, to not hesitate to be in touch with Andre and to talk about what they're doing and to see how you could all work together. So I'm going to leave the stage to Andre to present Plastiek. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a great introduction. You guys can hear me fine, right? Right? Okay. So yeah, hi, I'm Andre Bergs from Plastiek. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys basically a little bit of the process of how we make our digital comic. How we experimented to come to the form and just technically how we did it. And it's going to be awesome. Okay, so first, that's me. I grew up as basically a standard nerd, liking comics and games and animation, and I chose to follow animation. So for about 15 years, I've been directing animation shorts and commercials and TV series, and which was great. I love animation, but I also felt like it was time for something new. So comics. For those of you who don't know the comic that we made, it's much easier. The easiest way to show it is, or explain it, is just to show the video. So that's what I'm going to do. Bam. So it's a digital comic. It's a comic like you know a comic, but then animated and 3D on iPad or iPhone. Available in App Store and Google Play now. So you can read the comic in two different ways. You have like a full page view, like a classic comic, which works great for tablets. And you also have just a close-up mode, which is great for phones, but it also changes the experience in a pretty interesting way, actually. Then it's kind of like a movie that you're controlling the time of. So why did we do this? Because it looks like a lot of work. Because we thought it would be awesome. We basically wanted to make something for ourselves, right? Something that we would want to buy, like the best possible comic that we could make. So apart from that, some more lofty goals as well. We very much believe in like tablet and phones being a new medium, and that there's still like a lot of room still for narrative experimentation, and that there is still a lot of room to push narrative storytelling. And we wanted to build a universe also with our characters that we could play around with the whole transmedia idea. So make some games, make a comic, make animation. So that's why we made this. So how do we do this? Basically, I'm going to show you guys some of the experimentations, some of the more successful experimentations from way back in the beginning. And then after that, I'm going to show the process of the design, how we came to the final design of our latest comic, which the name is RRR, by the way. I don't think I said that yet. RRR or R or R. It's a comic, so the pronunciation doesn't matter so much. So this is what we use. This is what we call our system. It's just a name for a set of tools and rules. We decided on a certain approach, and then like those rules collectively, we call it the awesome 2.8 dimensional comic framework, because we like stupid names. So this is the basic idea, right? You take a comic, you add 3D to it, and then you loop it. I love all of these three elements very much. So for me, it felt very natural to try to combine them in a way that created something new, or a new experience at least. So, like I said, here are some of our experiments when we try to play around. We had the idea, but then, an idea is just an idea. You're going to have to fail a couple of times to really make the idea good. So this was one of the first tests where we, cheaply produced and try to get a feeling in a loop. Just have this looping thing that it's this one moment in time, it just keeps going. In that I think it succeeded. Style-wise, I didn't find it very interesting, but at least it had the looping thing going on. And then in this case, we started experimenting first with the tilt of a device. And using a more painterly approach from Photoshop, I thought the results turned very impressive very quickly actually. It's a whole, this is a world to me. That you have a window into a world, and that, I thought that worked quite well. So after that, we experimented with more the combination between the digital and the analog. I like analog strokes. In this case, I think it's quite interesting, but you don't have the feeling of a world anymore. It becomes paper cutouts in a little box. So it worked against the whole 3D for my feeling, this flatness, which for the character is a problem. Because characters are always difficult. If you could make just a 2D character on a flat plane, that's much easier than having a 3D character. But for me, this didn't work, so yep. Then we started experimenting with storytelling. And since we come from animation, we want to animate everything. In this case, we started animating all the panels. When you open the page, everything would animate and screen, and then when you slide away, everything would animate away, which works great. But essentially what this ended up being is a movie that pauses here and there, and then you have to push a button to have it start playing again. Because it animates in screen, and then you click, and then it animates out again. So we noticed with people reading it that they were just waiting, it's going to continue playing, I'm sure, but it didn't. You had to push a button. So that whole, there is a tension level between a movie and a comic, and this went too much to the movie, for my liking at least. So then after that, we went back to the character that didn't work on the previous one, and we wanted very much to have a 3D feeling of a 2D image. Unfortunately, that means that you have to make a 3D character and a 2D image to create a real good blend. So that's what we did. We created the 3D rigs. This was for the first comic. For me, as a mediocre at best artist, it's kind of nice to have a 3D rig also, because I can cheat, especially with drawing in perspective. It's very nice to have a 3D scene to base it off. So with this, we made this test, just combining the roughest watercolor style with a clean 3D structure. And I very much like that, the combination of the two, that they disappear somewhere and it becomes something new. Production-wise, this is not very, it's not very useful to have an actual watercolor, layered painting of every panel. So we converted the lessons learned here into a digital version that we use just Wacom Cintiqs to paint it and to still have that analog feeling in the structure, but also have a fully digital workflow. And I think this one, I think it works quite nice. I think. So from that, we took these lessons, basically know what you're making. I think that's important in general. In our case, it meant we're making a comic, we're not making a movie. So that means that time exists in moment. Like every panel in a comic is this one moment. You cannot really start editing in those panels. It has to be that one moment. If it's somebody walking, great, you can loop that. If it's somebody punching, you cannot loop a punch. It just gets super weird. So you just focus on that one moment of impact. And then we very much like when 2D and 3D meet, that where they both kind of disappear. You don't see if it's 2D or 3D where one starts and the other begins. We like that area very much. So yeah, that was for that. Then the designs. Because it was our own project, we just want to have fun with it. And we also feel like, okay, if you have fun with the project, it will translate to people reading it. So we invented rules, because that's you need rules if you want to have fun. So rule number 1 was about stupidity. We need everything to be stupid. If we make a design and it's only cool, that's no fun. Like, it has to be stupid, and if it's not stupid enough, we have to make it more stupid. For example, we had these characters, their planet is going to die, and okay, they're turkeys, already pretty stupid, but they needed a spaceship. So we Google Turkey, and you will find like Thanksgiving turkeys, which is a pretty good base already for a spaceship. So they basically fly around in dead versions of themselves. We made it into like a more complete spaceship. But then, like on the left there, it became too serious again. So we started adding stuff that shouldn't belong on spaceships, like a statue and pillars and like inscriptions on it to make it like more stupid again. And on the right, you see like we felt that is the good level of stupidity that we're looking for here. Same for the name. It's you can argue that it's a pretty stupid name. We like the visual recognizability of the name, though. And also, this connects to the other rule, which is a completely retarded rule. It's a very stupid rule. All of our names have 3 letters, and that is like a wink to the arcade systems. And the third rule for our design process was that we don't like the future to be perfect. We like our future to be 80s and bonky and stupid, like the Game Boy with all the stupid crap on top of it. That is the design language that we want to follow. So after that, we use those rules to create the characters and the whole universe. For the characters, we just contrast everything as sharp as possible. So we have this guy who is basically a walking sausage. If you have like the food chain, you have plankton here, and he's there. Everything eats this guy, and he's the boss. He's in charge. All of the shape language is round, also very fluffy and cute. He thinks he's quite the tough guy, of course. His first mate is an apex predator. Usually eats him. Everything is triangles. And she is as far away from the first character, Fur, as possible. And then the third character, he doesn't eat. He just drinks. So he's different from everybody else in that regard. Also, he doesn't speak. He doesn't really communicate with anybody, but he's probably very smart or very stupid. We don't really know. So he's the alien with an undefined amount of tentacles. And then, since it is a science fiction story, we need a ship robot, of course. So we have Ed, and we took everything that computers are good at, calculating, remembering things, and having no emotions, and made him very bad at that. So he's very emotional, he doesn't remember anything, and he needs an external calculator to count. And then the ship. Again, it's pretty stupid. We started out relatively serious with the top one, and then just like make it more and more stupid. I quite like the result. So, with all of that in place, we knew that we would have like a pretty tough time technically putting everything together. So we wanted to have a very strong pre-production and produce a key visual, so that all the team that we were working with, we had a bunch of freelancers that we were working with, that we had a very clear brief for everybody, so we all know what we were working on. So we went ahead and did all the 3D modeling of all the characters and like rig it, you know, animation, yeah, just like a regular animation, a rig, but we used it to pose it as well, and then afterwards animate it. And then we produced this. This was our first visual that everybody saw, like, ah, okay, this is what we're making. We had it on the iPad, so you could see like the tilt as well. We had some 3D animation, some 2D animation, everything working, and documents of how we were doing it. So, and we were pretty happy with it. I think it has a nice style, like a uniqueness to it. So, then production. This is our process, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of steps. I'm going to walk through those steps so that you guys just get an idea of what we exactly did. Yeah? I feel like I'm losing you guys. Are you still there? Okay. Okay, so first thumbnails, because everything starts with thumbnails always. Nice and dirty so that it's not so painful to change it. We very much like, especially since, you know, we had to pay for it all, we very much focused on this, like any big changes, this is where we do it, not later on, like here, this is where we define the story and find all of the big problems, generally speaking. So after that, we went straight into 3D. So we pose all of the panels, and we find like the nice rotation center point of the camera so that it works. Make sure you have a foreground and a midground and a background. And then we sketch. This is the fun part. So actually it's more tricky than it seems, because you're very tempted to just trace the 3D drawing, and that's going to suck. Like you have to find like a nice graphical shape and have like a bit of a balance between the 3D and the 2D. And then after that, clean up with a thin and thick line, and then color, and then the artwork is pretty much done. And then just checking with the whole page, like if it, you know, if it works as a thing. And then you just put it back in a 3D and you're done. This step was far more painful than it looks. But I think the results, like, yeah, we quite like it. So it's all projection mapping, so that we could keep the 2D feeling and have like a grain and have like a nice quality of line while still having the depth in there. After this, we animated. We worked a lot with freelancers, especially for the 3D animation. Coming out of the 3D animation industry, we know a lot of people that, you know, are character animators. But it was pretty tough for them to switch to this kind of animation, because, I mean, it's acting, but it's not acting like normal shots. So in general, whatever they did, we just had to like, oh yeah, less, that you don't see the loop, and that it, there's a balance here, at least in this case. Like if you animate her more than this, it becomes weird that her face isn't doing anything. For me, this is like a nice balance. Like, okay, I can feel like she's alive, but I'm not weirded out that her eyes aren't moving or her mouth isn't moving. So after that, we like explosions. We like specifically 2D animated explosions. Yeah, that always looks super cool. So we wanted to add like as much 2D animation as we could afford and could find like, you know, placement in the comic as we could. Our opening page is a prime example of that. Like this is pretty boring. Yeah, the explosions much better, and lasers and flying papers and embers and shit. We just try to, I mean, not just add stuff for the sake of it, but we very much try to push ourselves as much as possible. Whenever we thought, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to, like, yeah, okay, let's try that. I think that's a good guide in general. So, yeah, after that, we just put it in a game engine and done. Let me see if I can run it on my iPad. It should run, it should not crash. Yeah. Huh? So this is like the final result. And I think it works quite well. Like you can just like zoom in and like, oh my God, this is beautiful, right? Yeah. So, yes. So now we launched the game already, and it's been doing quite well. I get invited for talks like this, which is great. And we're about to launch translations because it's in English now, and specifically because this is like targeted as kids. Like we want to have good translations for every language. So we will launch the French and the Brazilian Portuguese version very soon. There's no Spanish version yet. But we're working on it. And also a Japanese version, which would be fantastic. So then we're also working on a small game right now and a small animation. Especially the animation I get excited about because we're also trying to find like a combination between 3D and 2D to work well in an animation. Then we're also working on part 2. We just approved for ourselves the thumbnails and we're into layout now. Then we have on the side, we have a Plastiek app that we give away for free. And we want to experiment with other people, like other comic artists that we like, or, you know, like to have a space to play around a little bit more. And so whenever we can find the time, we want to work on that more. And then we would like, because right now, our awesome 2.8 digital comic framework thing, it's very awesome, but it's not very easy. So for other people to create in, you know, the same thing, it's not impossible, but I wouldn't recommend it. So we want to push for a better development there, that we can, you know, like show to other people, that more people will use it. And also we would like to have a WebXR version of it, that you don't need to have an app to view the comic, but that you can just view it on a web page. Technically, that's a little bit more tricky than it seemed. So, but that's the plan at least. So, I think that's my story. I think, yeah. Do you guys have any questions, maybe? Do we have time for questions? I think we do, right? 5 minutes questions? One very long question, or like a couple of short questions?
Hello.
There you are.
I think it works really well with this kind of character, that is cartoon and that kind of things. But I don't know if for more realistic, how would work this? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of realistic stuff in general. Like, for me, reality, it exists already. I'm not interested in making it again. No. But you mean like realistic drawing style, or like realistic?
No, maybe like, for instance, Black Sad or something like that.
It will work fantastic for that. Why not?
Yeah.
Or why would you think that it wouldn't work for that?
No, I'm not sure. It's just a question.
I don't know. Like the first one that I made was slightly different style.
Yeah.
Like rougher. And for me, like I think this will work in most styles. As long as it will probably work with realism as well. It's just boring realism.
Yes. Sorry. It was better in the other one.
Sorry?
For me, it was better in the other one style.
Yeah?
Yeah, for me.
Okay, yeah.
But
ow.
Otherwise, but otherwise it was good here.
Yeah. So the more colorful stylization, that works better for you. Yeah. I think technically it makes some choices that you have. You were limited, right? And having very clear edges and clear areas of color makes it a little bit easier production-wise. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. How did you maintain the stroke in the form of the characters?
We have like tool presets in Photoshop. It's all like it's all 2D, all the strokes.
All the stroke, but if it's in 3D, When you turn around of the character, the
If you
stroke
turn around
maintaining the
this,
border.
It will look very, very, very badly. It's all projection mapping. So we made the painting just on a 2D canvas, and then we projected on 3D space. So for this, okay, here it looks good. If you would go further with the camera, it looks super bad.
Okay.
But we don't show that.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, thank you. It's like a projection only.
Yeah. Like it's just all the strokes is all 2D. There's no cell shading. There's no
Okay.
we wanted to have full control over the stroke and to really get a comic feeling.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.